Sarah Miller had lived alone in her Vermont farmhouse for the past 12 years, ever since her husband Robert passed away. At 72, she filled her quiet days tending to her vegetable garden, feeding local birds, and occasionally helping neighbors with their pets, a habit left over from her 40 years as a veterinary technician. That October morning began like any other. Sarah sat on her front porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the green mountains in brilliant shades of autumn. The air was crisp, scented with fallen leaves and the whisper of approaching winter. Another quiet day, she murmured to herself, unaware of how wrong she was. Around noon, something felt off. Her wind chimes tinkled in the still air, and her bird feeders, normally alive with fluttering wings, stood eerily empty. Even the chatty blue jays had vanished. A strange tension hummed in the atmosphere, one Sarah couldn't quite explain. Then, as dusk crept in, she heard it, a soft whimper, fragile and pained, coming from her back porch. Years of working with animals had trained Sarah's ears to recognize sounds of distress. Grabbing her flashlight, she stepped outside and opened the back door cautiously. There, huddled against the woodpile, was a large German Shepherd mix. The dog's fur was caked with mud and blood, and she was clearly injured, favoring her right side. But what stopped Sarah cold was the tiny bundle between the dog's front paws, a newborn puppy, no more than a few weeks old. "Oh, sweet girl," Sarah whispered, her heart breaking at the sight. The mother dog's eyes met hers, not with fear or aggression, but with an almost human-like desperation. She gently nudged the puppy forward, and then laid her head down in exhaustion. Sarah recognized the dog. She'd spotted her occasionally over the past few months, always at a distance, roaming the outskirts of nearby properties. Rumors in town said she'd escaped from an abusive home several towns over, but no one knew for sure. "You came to the right place," Sarah said softly. She moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 times. She called her longtime friend and local veterinarian, Dr. Emily Thompson. "Emily, I need you, and bring your emergency kit." While waiting, Sarah sat on the porch steps, close enough to watch, not close enough to frighten them. The mother dog kept her gaze on Sarah, but showed no signs of aggression, just that same desperate trust. "You knew, didn't you?" Sarah said gently. "You knew I used to help animals." The dog's tail thumped once, weakly, against the porch. Looking at them, this brave mother, broken and bleeding, and her tiny, vulnerable pup, Sarah felt tears rise to her eyes. Somehow, through pain and fear, this dog had come not to save herself, but to ensure her puppy survived. A final act of love. Headlights swept across the porch as Emily's car crunched over the gravel. The harsh light revealed the full extent of the mother dog's injuries. Deep gashes along her side, likely from barbed wire or a fight with another animal. "What do we have?" Emily asked, medical bag in hand. Sarah looked down at the wounded mother, who was still licking her puppy with the little strength she had left. "We have a miracle," Sarah replied, "and we're not going to waste it." The next few hours were a blur of focused activity. Dr. Thompson's examination confirmed their fears: severe lacerations, signs of infection, dangerously high fever, and dehydration. The mother had been carrying these injuries for days, and yet she had kept her puppy alive, fed and warm, through sheer will. They carefully moved both mother and pup into the mudroom, converting it into a makeshift treatment space. While Emily cleaned and treated wounds, Sarah monitored vitals and spoke to the dog in soft tones. "She's been sacrificing everything for her baby," Sarah murmured, cradling the tiny pup, "even now." As Emily parted the matted fur around the dog's neck, she found an old collar embedded in the skin. "This confirms it," she said grimly. "She was chained. Someone abandoned her when they realized she was pregnant." Sarah's eyes filled with fire. "She's not going back there, not ever." Around midnight, Emily finished her work. She packed up her supplies with a quiet warning. "The next 24 hours are critical. I've given her antibiotics and fluids, but she's very weak." "I'll stay with them," Sarah said without hesitation. "Grace, that's what I'll call you. Because despite everything, you still had the grace to trust again. The puppy, small, and after Emily left, Sarah settled into an old armchair she'd dragged into the mudroom. The mother lay on a blanket, her puppy nursing quietly. Sarah managed to get a little food and water into her, but the dog's concern remained fixed on her baby. Watching this, Sarah whispered, "You need a name, something strong." She studied the dog's face, gentle brown eyes still full of fierce love. "Grace, that's what I'll call you, because despite everything, you still had the grace to trust again." The puppy, small and fragile, was christened Hope. That night, Sarah barely slept, dozing in intervals, waking every hour to check on Grace's breathing. Just before dawn, Grace began to struggle for breath. "Hold on, sweet girl," Sarah whispered, stroking her head. "Your baby needs you. I need you." Grace's eyes, fever-glazed, fixed on Sarah. Her tail thumped weakly. Then, with trembling effort, she nudged her puppy toward Sarah, just like she had done on the porch. "No," Sarah said, choking back tears. "This isn't goodbye. You're not just saving her anymore. You're saving both of us." She didn't know whether it was her words, the treatment, or Grace's unbreakable will, but slowly her breathing steadied. By the time Emily arrived, the fever had broken. "She's a fighter," Emily said with a smile. Sarah nodded, gently stroking Grace's head as the dog rested her muzzle in Sarah's lap. "No," she whispered, "she's family." The weeks that followed brought a new rhythm to Sarah's life. Grace's wounds slowly healed. Her matted fur was carefully groomed, and Hope, the little miracle, thrived under the care of both her mother and Sarah. By 6 weeks, she was waddling around the mudroom, attacking shoelaces and chasing shadows. "I haven't heard you laugh like that since Robert died," Emily said during a checkup. Sarah smiled. "I guess I haven't had a reason to." Word of Grace and Hope spread through the small Vermont town. Neighbors who had kept their distance since Robert's death began stopping by, bringing food, blankets, toys, and conversation. Tom, the farmer next door, helped build a fence so Grace and Hope could play outside. Martha from the general store remembered seeing Grace in the woods months ago. "She was always watching," she said, like she was trying to figure out who she could trust. And Grace had chosen wisely. 3 weeks after her arrival, Grace stepped cautiously into the kitchen for the first time, carrying Hope gently by the scruff. From then on, she claimed her place by the living room window, watching birds return to the feeders. Hope, now energetic and curious, chased leaves and chewed on chair legs. "Robert would have loved this," Sarah told Grace one evening on the porch. "He always said a house wasn't a home without the sound of paws." Grace rested her head on Sarah's knee, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt the ache of grief soften, replaced with something new, something healing. Sarah began journaling again. Day 23 with Grace and Hope. Grace walked the full yard today, no limp. Hope barked at her reflection for an hour. Tom's installing a dog door tomorrow. This house feels alive again. Sometimes, Sarah thought, healing happens when you're busy helping others heal. That night, she heard soft paw steps on the stairs. Grace had climbed them for the first time, Hope close behind. They curled into the guest room Sarah had prepared. Sarah brought her own pillows and blanket, just for tonight, she told them. But as she fell asleep to the sound of puppy snores and Grace's steady breath, she knew, just for tonight, was becoming forever. As winter arrived, Grace and Hope's story reached beyond Sarah's farm. Emily shared it with her clients. Families began visiting, especially those with children learning about kindness. Grace, gentle and intuitive, became a therapy dog in her own right. She seemed to know exactly how to comfort frightened children. And Hope? She brought joy with every clumsy bounce and wagging tail. One day, a little girl named Amy, who hadn't touched a dog since a traumatic attack, sat quietly beside Grace, gently stroking her ears. "This is the first time she's touched a dog since," Amy's mother whispered through tears. "We tried everything, but something about Grace." "She understands," Sarah replied softly. "She knows what it's like to be afraid, and how to trust again." The local school partnered with Sarah. Children came every Saturday, talking through their worries while Grace laid her head in their laps and Hope dropped toys at their feet. One snowy morning, Tom brought his teenage grandson Jake. "He's been in some trouble," he said. "Thought maybe the dogs could help." And Sarah, smiling warmly, opened the door wide. "Come on in," she said. "Grace and Hope are waiting." Tom had suggested something better than sitting around playing video games. At first, Jake was sullen, withdrawn, but everything changed when Hope, the puppy, bounded up to him with her favorite rope toy. Soon he was helping Sarah build a small agility course in the backyard using materials from Tom's barn. The project gave him purpose, something to look forward to after school. "You know what I like about dogs," Jake said one afternoon, watching Hope master a new trick. "They don't care about your past. They just care about who you are right now." Sarah glanced at Grace, who was watching her puppy's progress with obvious pride. "That's true," she replied. "They're excellent judges of character. Grace wouldn't let just anyone train her puppy." Jake's shoulders straightened slightly at that. As winter settled in, Sarah's house became known as the Grace Place. Children stopped by after school to read to the dogs, do their homework, or simply talk. Parents began noticing changes: better grades, improved behavior, increased empathy. During one of her now regular visits, Emily joked, "You've gone from retired vet tech to running an unofficial animal-assisted therapy program." Sarah smiled, watching Grace gently guide Hope through a new agility obstacle while Jake encouraged her. "Sometimes life has other plans for us," she said. "Sometimes it sends us exactly what we need, even if it comes in an unexpected package." But it wasn't just the children who transformed. Sarah's house, once a quiet monument to loss, now hummed with life. The walls, which had held only memories, now displayed children's artwork, drawings of Grace and Hope, thank you cards, and photos of graduates from what the kids called Grace Training. One evening, as snow fell softly outside, Sarah sat reviewing her journal from the past few months. Day 97, with Grace and Hope Jake, taught Hope to weave through poles today. His grandmother says he's bringing his grades up. Amy brought her little sister to meet Grace. No fear in either of them now. Mrs. Chun wants to discuss making the program official next spring. Grace helped 3 new children today. She seems to know exactly who needs her most. Hope's getting so big, but she still curls up with her mother every night. Robert would say we're building something special here. He'd be right. Just then, Grace padded over and placed her head in Sarah's lap, her way of saying it was time for their evening walk. Hope pranced by the door, leash in her mouth, while snow continued drifting past the windows. "Just like your mother," Sarah said fondly to Hope. "You know exactly what we need, don't you?" As they stepped out into the quiet winter evening, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that desperate night on her porch. Grace had come seeking sanctuary, but she'd given so much more than she received. She had helped create a place where healing wasn't just possible. It was contagious. The blizzard. The January storm hit Vermont with unexpected ferocity. Weather reports warned of the worst blizzard in decades. Sarah spent the morning preparing, filling water jugs, checking the generator, and bringing in extra firewood. But Grace seemed unsettled, pacing between windows and whining softly. "Something wrong, girl?" Sarah asked, watching the dog's unusual behavior. Even Hope, normally playful, stayed close to her mother. The answer came that afternoon when Emily called. "Sarah, we've got trouble. The Hendersons' barn roof partially collapsed from the snow. They've got 5 dogs in there, and the roads are becoming impassable." The Hendersons lived 3 miles away. Elderly farmers, they took in retired working dogs. Sarah remembered from her vet tech days. "Tom's trying to reach them with his truck," Emily continued, "but it's not looking good." Grace was already at the door, posture alert. Something in Sarah's voice or tone must have communicated the urgency. "I'll call you back," Sarah said, mind racing. The old cross-country skis in her garage, unused since Robert's passing, might be her only option. She layered up. "Grace, Hope, stay," she commanded firmly. But when she opened the door, Grace slipped past her with surprising speed. Hope tried to follow, but Grace barked sharply, sending her back inside. "You want to help, don't you?" Sarah said, looking into Grace's determined eyes. She remembered how this dog had survived alone in these woods for months. "Okay, girl, let's do this. Together." The journey was brutal. Wind-driven snow reduced visibility to mere feet. The cold bit through her layers, but Grace proved invaluable, finding the safest path through drifts, keeping them on course when Sarah faltered. They found the Hendersons' barn partially collapsed. Dogs inside barked frantically. Through the blinding snow, Sarah spotted Mr. Henderson trying to clear debris, his wife calming the frightened animals. "Sarah!" Mrs. Henderson cried in disbelief. "How did you—" "Grace led the way," Sarah shouted. "Where do you need us?" Working together, they created an opening. Grace, showing remarkable intelligence, helped calm the dogs as they were led out one by one. Her presence reassured them, making the evacuation smoother. Just as they were guiding the last dog out, Sarah heard a sharp crack. "Watch out!" she screamed. Grace lunged forward, pushing Mrs. Henderson out of the path of a falling beam. The beam crashed down, trapping Grace beneath it. "No, no, no, no," Sarah whispered, scrambling to reach her friend. Memories of that first night, the injury, the desperation, flashed in her mind. Mr. Henderson helped lift the debris. Grace lay still for a moment, then slowly stood, shaking off the snow. She was limping, but alive. "My girl," Sarah breathed, wrapping her arms around Grace. "My brave, beautiful girl." Just then, headlights appeared through the storm. Tom's truck had made it. With his help, they loaded the dogs and the Hendersons into the truck. "What about you?" Tom asked. Sarah looked at Grace, already facing home. "We'll make it back," she said. "Grace knows the way." The return was slower. Sarah supported Grace when her limp worsened. The storm began to ease, and the setting sun painted the snow in hues of gold and pink. When they reached the farmhouse, Hope was waiting anxiously by the door. She fussed over her mother, licking snow from her fur. Sarah checked Grace, just bruises, no serious harm. That evening, Sarah's phone rang nonstop. Neighbors called to check in. The local news picked up the story. Retired vet tech and rescue dog. Brave blizzard to save animals. Sarah sat on the floor, Grace on one side, Hope on the other. "You know the amazing thing," she whispered. "A few months ago you came to me for help. Today you helped save others. That's how healing works. It spreads." Grace laid her head on Sarah's lap. Hope curled beside her mother. Outside, the storm howled on. Inside there was warmth, love, and the quiet certainty that the greatest courage often comes from those who've known the deepest fear. The Grace Project Grows Spring came early that year, bringing change. 6 months ago, Sarah's farmhouse was a quiet place of mourning. Now it was the heart of something extraordinary. The local school board approved the Grace Project, a program using grace and hope to help children with emotional and behavioral challenges. What started informally had grown into structured sessions. Emily provided professional guidance. Sarah shared her years of animal care experience. "Look at this," Emily said one morning, holding up a letter. "The State Veterinary Association wants to feature the Grace Project in their journal as a model." Outside the window, Grace supervised children in the backyard. Jake, now a regular volunteer, was teaching them how to train with positive reinforcement. Hope, nearly full-grown but still puppyish, demonstrated tricks with wagging enthusiasm. She didn't just save herself and Hope, Sarah reflected. She started a chain reaction of healing. Amy, once too afraid to touch a dog, now helped others overcome their fears. The Hendersons rebuilt their barn with community help. Their rescue dogs joined the Grace Project too. One warm April afternoon, a stranger appeared at the gate, holding a newspaper clipping. "My name is Karen," the woman said nervously. "I think Grace used to be my dog." Grace pressed gently against Sarah's leg, calm but alert. No fear, no recognition. Karen's voice cracked as she told her story, how she'd lost her home, left Grace with someone who promised to care for her, only to learn she'd been abandoned. "I've gotten back on my feet," she said through tears. "When I saw the article, I just wanted to know she was okay. I've carried so much guilt." Grace stepped forward, nosing Karen's hand, offering a forgiveness deeper than words. "Would you like to be part of the Grace Project?" Sarah asked. "We could use more volunteers, and I think Grace would like that." Karen's grateful smile said everything. Day 248 with Grace and Hope. Karen helped welcome 2 new therapy dogs today. Jake was accepted into veterinary school, says Grace inspired him. Hope completed her therapy certification, like mother, like daughter. The new addition to the house is almost done. We'll be able to help more children soon. Grace showed another child how to trust. Still amazes me, how she knows exactly what each person needs. Robert would say, "We've come full circle, from one desperate night to a whole community of healing." One summer evening, Sarah sat on the porch steps, the same steps where Grace had first appeared. The dog lay beside her, muzzle now gray, eyes still bright with love. Hope sprawled nearby, resting after a long day of therapy work. Laughter drifted from the backyard. Children helped Jake set up tomorrow's activities. Martha's car pulled up with fresh baked goods for the weekend. Tom waved from the field, prepping land for the new animal sanctuary. "You know what, Grace?" Sarah said softly, scratching behind her ear. "That night you brought Hope to my porch, I thought I was saving you. But really, you were saving all of us." Grace's tail thumped once, twice, just like that first night. But this time it wasn't desperate. It was an affirmation of everything they'd built, a place where broken spirits could heal, where trust could be rebuilt, where love multiplied, quietly, steadily, with each new day. And as fireflies lit the night sky, Sarah knew the greatest gifts often come wrapped in fur, trust, and second chances. If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.